Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon.
And Mom, thank you so much for joining us again today.
Yeah, we always love doing this. And Mom, I hope you're doing well. And what show are we speaking about here today?
Today, on our first episode Friday, we're going to talk about TJ Hooker.
Yes, and so this series is indeed a drama series, police show, and it aired from 1982 to 1986. This first episode is a TV movie, and it's titled The Protectors.
It is. And it's our second show that we're talking about in the kind of series that we're going to focus on our Fridays in August. And so once more, we're focusing on August on some of our detective and or police series. And we're looking at their first episodes. And I'm going to just give a little bit of background, just the overall view of TJ Hooker. The TV show TJ Hooker, when it premiered in 1982, it focused on a character named TJ, who is a police officer. And as a police officer, he is in charge of a new recruit program. This is more so of an on-the-job type of recruit program for police officers. They did have some initial training that went on, but as soon as they thought it was best for them to go out in the field, they were putting out in the field fairly soon, and they were partnered with an experienced officer. And so in this particular episode, we have 4 or 5 different police officers, or recruits rather, who are kind of who we are emphasized in this particular episode. We see how they adjust to being police officers. Then we learn a little bit about their private lives also.
Yeah, and Mom, that's a good synopsis. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and so, like you said, I mean, there's certainly a lot to say about this first episode, this pilot movie, and I will say that oftentimes for these drama shows that you will see these little movies as first episodes, and I know back during our superhero month we saw this for The Greatest American Hero.
Yeah, we did. And one of the things I did like about this, Brandon, about this particular episode, is that I thought they did a lot of character development, even for their hour and a half movie. I thought there was a lot of character development in here in this particular show, and so, which I think is important for people who do watch future episodes of the series.
Yes, and I will say that for me, I guess to give a little bit of background, So I know I have largely not seen the series in its entirety. I've seen bits and pieces, of episodes, that occurred during its run, but not full episodes for the most part, aside from this first one. And so it's really interesting to see this. And Mom, I know that you're quite familiar with the show.
Yeah, actually, your daddy and I got bored and we watched the whole series. I think we started somewhere in the middle and ended up watching the rest of it and then went back and watched the beginning. But it has been years and years since I've seen it. But yes, we have watched this series, I think maybe 2 or 3 times through.
Yeah, and so overall, what were some of your impressions of this first episode?
Well, I can tell you let me tell you about the character development a little bit because that kind of helped to know a little bit about the future of the characters. Not to say too much about the future episodes, but just by watching this first episode, you learn a lot about TJ. We learn about his past life, and his past life really kind of shows up in future episodes. In regards that, we learn that he is a divorced. Recently divorced. We know that he has 2 children. And we know that he was injured in the line of duty, and we also know that he was investigated at some point very recently, or at least in this first episode, about an incident that occurred recently at that time period. And so, and he really wants to go back and help train future cadets and teach them what he knows about being a police officer. And so those are things we kind of learn from this particular first episode that I think is really kind of essential. There are things that I didn't know until much later while watching the show. I did pick up later that he was divorced, that you quickly figure that out. But after that, what you didn't know were about his children because they were kind of come in and out. And so, to learn that he did have 2 children who he was close to, at least initially anyway. And then, and to learn about his past and why he wanted to actually continue being in the police force. And he also was in Vietnam too, and that comes up in future episodes.
Yeah, and so for me, my experience with with viewing this pilot movie is that we're introduced to so many different characters, who are police recruits. We only focus on a few, but we sort of get a wide array of characters, and so. For instance, one of them is doing this as a change of pace, and he's missing his wife. There's another girl who just wants a female police officer who wants to just be treated equally, just like all of the other recruits. And then you have this one character, Romano, who is probably one of the only ones I can probably say by name, just because there are just so many different characters. But I would say he probably has one of the most characterizations, of this pilot movie. And so for him, he is trying to be like a ladies' man, really bad at that though. But he is trying his best, but similar to T.J. Hooker, that he also had fought in the war, and he has a bit of PTSD, and so we see a lot of characterizations of characters. Some characters don't make it, but it's interesting to see all of it. But I feel like, in my personal opinion, it's a lot of people in very little time, and I don't know if all the storylines quite ended per se.
That's very true, Brandon. Their storylines did not end for all of them, and I don't know who they originally thought would carry on with the show. In the end, out of this big group, it was a captain who we see just a little bit in the first episode, and then we also have Romano, who you mentioned, who carries on throughout the series, and well, for most of the rest of the series, and so for me, when I watch, of course, I watch TJ and Romano because they're the ones that were partnered together later on in the series. In future episodes, there are a couple other characters who are introduced, but once more, they focus just on them and not a large group. They do a good job of just making sure it's just those four that are the core. But this, you're right, Brandon. In this first episode, we're given so many characters and of course, I think they, as TJ is teaching them, it's like they all go through something as to prove a point, or in the particular series.
Yeah, and I would definitely be here forever if I was trying to follow every single character storyline, especially since I know many of them do not reappear in the series, or to the best of my knowledge, at least in this capacity. But nevertheless, I thought it was definitely intriguing being able to see these storylines, and so and sort of the behind the scenes of it. We do get to see the other side of people's personal lives. For instance, one of the officers, his wife, that he was missing so much, is apparently with another man. I don't think we get closure on that one either per se, but like that's one of them. And there's just so many. But we get to see TJ's personal life as well.
Yeah, we do. We get really probably more in depth than we probably want to know, but yeah, we do learn quite a bit about TJ.
Yeah, and so like overall, like would you watch this pilot movie again?
What what I have seen the pilot movie before. Um, the question would be, at that time period, would I continue watching? I don't know. If I hadn't been bored that one day, would I continue watching the show? Well, I did continue watching it regardless. So that is hard to answer for me because I have seen it. So I guess I would have to say yes, I continue watching it since I've seen it more than once, and I have seen the series. If you're asking about that time period, I don't know because, like I said, I watched it in reruns.
Yeah, I know for me, if I had to base it just simply off of, was that this first episode, probably not. However, I would be interested in seeing more of the series later, and I think that's sort of the purpose of some of these, TV movies is that did you like the concept and pilots episodes overall? Like, did you like the concept at least? And if we like it enough, we'll make a series, and we might change some stuff along the way, whether it be in episode 2 or season 2 or whatever the case may be.
Yes, yes, very true, Brian.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like I said, this is obviously the series premiere and the first episode of season 1. However, I will note that season 1 apparently was actually really short. There are only 4 more episodes of season 1.
Yeah, I did. I've read that online also, Brandon. Yeah, if season one was a mid-season replacement, so it was a very short season.
Yeah, and didn't actually even go for a whole month. It was March 13th to April 10th.
Oh, wow. Well, that's interesting. And they made, and just so the audience will know, for season two, or at least by the time season two rolled around, they had made some remarkable changes for the show.
Yeah, that's definitely good to know. And I will say one character who becomes important later on, but is somewhat introduced in this, is the police captain, who we very briefly see in the beginning of the TV movie.
Yeah, he spends more time in a theme song than I think he did actually in the show in that particular episode itself. But yes, he does become he does become a more important character as the series progresses. His daughter is even introduced later.
Yeah, and I will say that that we do see another senior police officer, at least in this episode. I don't believe continues on through the series, but it has a little bit of a little connection for us.
Yeah, we did. We did. We saw. Gosh, and I forgot his name. Okay, we saw Hal Williams, who is our connection with 227.
Yes, and so he plays was one of the senior police officers alongside T.J. Hooker for this episode. But he's not the only 227 connection we have.
No, no, no. We saw Pearl for our 227 audience. She was in this episode also.
Yeah, and so who would have thought that we would have not one but two different characters from 227 who appear in this episode.
I know. And then, Brandon, just so you know, when I was watching also, I saw Brian Patrick Clark, who I had a long conversation with you about, and he played on General Hospital. So there's a connection there with our General Hospital series.
Well, we certainly have connections galore, but yeah, it's so interesting, to see all the different connections that we have to certain series, especially as we continue doing these first episode discussions that we're going to have just more and more.
Yes, yes, it is. It's fun to watch. And I will say, not to change subjects very quickly, but the theme song, I will say I absolutely love the instrumental version of the TJ Hooker theme song.
Yeah, I certainly do. And I know for this one, we don't quite get, the usual sequence that we do get, but instead sort of the title card and some of the names over the training session.
Yes, that's all we get for the first episode. However, many of the scenes in the theme song beginning on episode two are from this pilot episode.
But yeah, and so Mom, is there anything else that you want to discuss for the series?
No, I think we hit it all, Brandon. Like I said, for those people who are interested in this type of show, like I said, I have seen it all the way through. It is a nice watch all the way through, but you got to be in the mood to watch it.
Yeah, I would say that was probably the most accurate, like I said, description of that. But in all honesty, I really do, like I said, enjoy the show. And the first episode I struggled a little bit with just because there's just so much going on. But I'm definitely would look forward to seeing sort of like the rest of season one and how they shape everything going into the rest of the series.
Yep. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Bye bye.